38 years, we're going to see that Jesus encountered a man that's been paralyzed for 38 years. And Jesus is going to ask him, will he want to be made whole? Or will he want to be healed of his paralysis? The power of Jesus to heal someone that everyone knows has been sick and has been sick or ill or infirm for a long time. And then it's going to talk about the deity or the divine aspect of Jesus, the fact that he was 100% human and 100% divine. And he was God in flesh. He was Emmanuel. He was God with us. He was the one incarnate. He was God incarnate, which means God came down in another form. See, when you start talking about the word incarnate, there's another word that people use oftentimes. They use the word reincarnation, which incarnate is part of reincarnation. And they use it in a sense of taking on a different form. If they died, they say, well, I'm going to come back as a lion. I'm going to come back as a shark. I'm going to come back as an eagle. And they think, well, I'm going to come back reincarnated as another form or another species when I leave here, which we know that that's not able to happen because God didn't create us that way. God put within us everything we need. We're a body, soul, and spirit. And God made us that way so that we can have a connection with him through the spirit and through our soul. Our body was made for the earth platform by which God placed us in an earth platform. Our body was made for the earth platform. But our soul and our spirit was made for God's heavenly platform. And so when we have both the heavenly platform and the earth platform meet, now all of a sudden we are whole as a human being. We are whole as a Homo sapien. We are whole as humanity. Jesus was not a household name. But after he turned water into wine in John chapter 4, at the wedding of Cana, people were asking questions about him. They wanted to know who he was because he performed this miracle. He turned water into wine. They wanted to know, who is this guy? They want to know, how does he do what he do by turning water into wine? They want to know, what else could he do? Within days, Jerusalem was bustling with travelers and tourists coming to the feast. They were won't be wild with the grandeur of the temple or with the pomp and circumstance of the Roman soldiers at the Antonia fortress. But don't take them to Bethesda. Bethesda was a place called, it was a place of Bethesda, it's a place with 5 porches. And Bethesda was teeming with hurting humanity. It's like if visitors come to town, let's say visitors come to New York City or your city, whatever your city is. Let's say visitors come to your city. What you want them to see is the best parts of your city. You don't want to take them to the place where the homeless encampments are, or the areas where there's a lot of crime or dilapidated buildings. You want the visitors to see the best of your city. Well, this was the way it was in Jesus' day in Jerusalem. They had these tourists and travelers coming from all over for this great feast. And they wanted to ensure that the people saw the best of Jerusalem. Now, Bethesda is set in the midst of Jerusalem, and it was a place of 5 porches. But it was a place where people came because they were infirm, sick, paralyzed, injured. All their problems, all the ails and the ills of that society gathered at Bethesda because this had happened, this specific thing had happened once a year where the angel would come down and trouble the waters. And anyone that got in the water first would get their healing. As Jesus wound his way through this sea of sickness and paralysis, he met a man who had been disabled for 38 years. That's the lesson subject, 38 years. Almost a whole generation. This man sat almost a whole generation waiting for his healing. Now, I don't know if anybody out there has lived, 45, 50 years where they can kind of remember things from 38 years ago. But if we live long enough, we can recap or remember some things from 38 years ago. Just imagine what things were like 38 years ago and where things are now. 38 years ago, there was no internet. Amen. There was no YouTube. There was no Google. Amen. There was no social media. 38 years ago. There was no iPhone. Computers were just getting a foothold. Video games were just getting a foot. 38 years ago, one of the two biggest video games they had was Pac-Man and Donkey Kong. And Tetris. 38 years ago. And so what I'm saying is, a whole generation has passed. Many people have been born and died off the scene for 38 years ago. But this man has sat at this pool or came to this pool every year for 38 years, hoping that he can get in first so he can get his healing. The man was about to grieve his 40th anniversary of being disabled. Jesus didn't flinch. He commanded the man, rise, take up your bed and walk. John chapter 5, verse 8. Immediately a man who had not walked in 38 years stood steadily. He steadied himself and he walked. One simple command from Jesus Christ erased a generation-long illness and gave the man a brand new beginning.